Ricardo won? Oh hey, I didn't see you there. What's wrong? What are you doing? What does it look like I'm doing, Ricardo 2? It looks like you're sulking in your... That's right. I'm sulking in my sorrows. Well, what are you upset about? Sonic Prime. Duh. I can't. It was the 3rd season. I didn't enjoy it. Hey, what's up everyone, it's me, SpeedSuperSonic, bringing you guys another video. In this video today, we're here to talk about Sonic Prime Season 3. This is my official review, this is what you guys have been waiting for. I need some extra time to work on this review, rather than getting out on the day of its release, because I do have more thoughts on the show than I have had for the past few seasons, because I do feel different about this season in particular than the past two. And the title and everything should be no secret, I am not as high on Sonic Prime Season 3 as I have been the past few seasons. If you guys don't know, I have been Sonic Prime's biggest supporter. I have loved this show so far. I have thought it has been the best Sonic show that we've had. And I still think it can be argued that it's the best Sonic show that we have, but there's not a whole lot of competition. But there's definitely more room for debate, in my opinion, now after the conclusion, because Sonic Prime Season 3 was not my cup of tea. I didn't hate this. I didn't think it was the worst thing put to television or anything like that. I don't even think this is some of the worst Sonic cartoon stuff we've ever gotten. You can point towards, obviously, Sonic Underground and even some stuff with Sonic X. Don't act like that show is perfect. And I'd much rather take a show like this compared to something like Sonic Boom. One of the biggest flaws, in my opinion, that Sonic Prime has had during its entire run has been pacing. And this is no different. In fact, this shows the biggest issue with this show's pacing so far. Almost, and I can say this pretty much with confidence, nothing really happens in this season. That might be an oversimplification because obviously this is the final season, so there's a conclusion in this which we will get to, but so much doesn't happen in this show, and so much repetitiveness happens that it almost feels like you're watching the same episode just in like a different multiverse, ironically, over and over and over again. A majority of this show, outside of the first episode, which I thought was really solid, is just fight sequences. It is a giant, almost endgame-like battle between Sonic and all of his multiverse friends against Nine and his army. I'm a big fan of action, I'm all for it, but I'm also a strong believer in characters come first. And it's not like all of the characters are completely forgotten. There's some good moments in here, such as Dreadnoughts having some character development along with Rusty Rose, obviously Sonic himself and his relationship with Shadow and all of that developing like it should, and of course Nine, which we'll get to a little later. But it's all buried beneath a mountain of nonsensical action for the most part that is not terrible. I do think that the animation team did the best with what they were given in terms of resources. There's only so many characters you're able to fit on a screen at once, but I can only care about that for so long, let alone almost an entire season worth of television. But the biggest thing that we've been talking about with Prime for so long has been Sonic himself, the Sonic the Hedgehog character. I'm still a strong believer that I will gladly take this version of Sonic any day. I don't know if I've ever said this is my favorite interpretation of the character. It's definitely come close, but I will gladly still take the Sonic movie interpretation over him because I do think that they fumbled the bag a little bit when it comes to him in this series. Now, once again, I still love this interpretation of the character. I am still a strong disbeliever in Sonic being a static, never evolving character, because then you have no character. I don't think Sonic should be perfect. I don't like that. I don't think it makes for a good story. I respect fans who say that's what they want. Yes, that's how Sonic's been, but it's not what he should be. They were setting up for a very interesting character arc for Sonic that they kind of reach, but at the same time they kind of don't. Sonic throughout this entire season, like he did in season 2 kind of, is just really pleading and giving these monologues to Nine that, like the action sequences, happen multiple times per episode, to where it's like you can only say this one thing so many times before you just kind of give up. I hate to make this analogy, but it's like you're in a relationship with your partner and they just won't stop beating you and doing drugs. There are only so many times you can try to reason with them and like be like, hey, what you're doing is really wrong and you shouldn't treat people like this, before, you know, you can't do that anymore. You just gotta leave the person behind. That's how I felt watching this with Sonic. I understand this is to show Sonic's inherent goodness, to show that Sonic, regardless of how flawed you might be, he'll try to get you back to a good state. You know, it's commendable for Sonic's character, but in terms of the writing of the show, it comes overly repetitive and just kind of just irritating to hear at a point. If you guys don't know, when I watch these shows, I take notes each episode and I write down all of the significant plot points and character interactions and little criticisms I have, and I would love to do plot by plot, episode by episode, scene by scene breakdowns with you guys, but I don't have too much to go over here. Because spoiler alert, I tried to film a different version of this review where I went episode by episode, hence why this video is coming later than usual, but I felt like me talking was how I felt watching the show. Like I was just saying and doing the same thing over and over and over again. I think this comes down in a large part to how this show is sequenced. They were going for a long, overarching, episode by episode narrative. They were not trying to do, little episodic things where it's just, one little story and then loosely connected to the next story. Think like Sonic X, for instance, and mainly like that first season in particular. But this is essentially just one long 3-season weekend, This approach was fine, and I was very open to it, and I was very excited that they were taking this approach to a Sonic show, because we'd never got that before. But this kind of felt more like, rather than a victory lap, more like a slow crawl to the finish line to reach your episode order. This show could maybe be condensed into like a season, a good season, if you condense all of the stuff as tightly and neatly as possible. I think you condense the first season into a few episodes, and same with the second and this. And with my friends when we were talking about the show, we were like, you know what? Prime would have made for a great series of TV movies. And look, I know we needed a new Sonic the Hedgehog TV show in the air. It's been too long without one, and the last one that was out did significant brand damage to the franchise. And I'm glad we got this show. I really am, and I enjoy this show greatly for the most part. But then I also get to thinking like, man, this could have been really, really great as a series of TV movies. They could have had a lot more resources to make it look even better than it does, but make no mistake, Sonic Prime does look amazing. I still do really like the look of the show, even if there's some animation errors in this season in particular. I still do really like the look of it. I think it's the best looking Sonic show by far. But speaking of smaller stuff like, the animation, that being good, I also like the voice acting still. I think all of these actors deliver great versions of these characters. I still love Devin Mack's voice for Sonic. It sounds so faithful to the character. Like, it's a perfect blend of all of these different versions of Sonic. And I honestly think that because there's so much discussion around this interpretation of the character, Devin Mack's performance gets just so incredibly overshadowed. No pun intended. You know what? I'm just gonna say this. I think at the end of the day, Devin Mack is the best Sonic. I think he gives like the most consistent performance as Sonic, has a lot of range. Even if sometimes the words coming out of Sonic's mouth don't match the expression on his face, I think that's more of like a direction fault than like an actual like voice acting fault of Devin Mack. So there's a lot of good in here, yes, like some of the stuff I just listed, but then you also have some of the weaker aspects of the show, such as the ending. Let's dive into that real quick. I really like the ending for the most part. It's just amazing to see Sonic back with his original group of friends, but it's no surprise though that this show ends on a cliffhanger. Now let me explain that real quick, because there's a lot of confusion that a lot of people are just really confused about. There are only 23 episodes opposed to the 24 episode order that we got from Netflix when it was first announced. So why is this? Well, it's a really simple explanation. Sonic Prime, the first episode of the series, is 2 episodes condensed into one. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but that episode is around 40-ish minutes long. So that essentially took 1 episode out of the season 1 order. That could have been, added on to season 3. So I hope that explains it. There isn't a secret episode in hiding or anything like that. But nonetheless, the ending though does feel a little like thrown together in some ways. Nothing really definitive or conclusive, more of a setup for something in the future. Now I plan on talking more about the future of Sonic Prime in a video coming up very soon, but there's been talk that there are no current episodes, in production, any plans for more Sonic Prime. But also, on the other hand, Sonic Prime's incredibly successful, so maybe there was like an order from an executive like, hey, this show is incredibly successful for us, or if this show does good, set up an ending for where we could have more seasons down the line. Because a lot of people don't talk about how successful Sonic Prime actually is. It's very successful for Netflix. It's one of their most watched animated series, so don't be surprised if at some point soon they do another order of Sonic Prime episodes that will span off into season 4, 5, and 6. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see, but that's my thoughts on the ending, and really my thoughts on the entire season. Overall, it's just kind of lackluster. Like I say in the title of this video, it's really imperfect. There's some great here, there's some amazing stuff, there's an emotional scene with Sonic and 9 that I did really like to see, but when I see that scene, I can't think about the overly repetitive pleas with 9, and I can't think about the action, hours and hours of action I just had to sit through. That really didn't move me in any way, and I think the number one goal of a story should be to move the audience. And Sonic Prime tries to do that, and has done that at points, and it's very, very well done first and second season. But this season, just like I said earlier, crawls to the finish line rather than jogging to it. Overall, I think the series though is great. I think it is the best Sonic show. That first season of Sonic Prime, in my opinion, is undefeated. It is so good. I really enjoy season 2, and then it has like a really cool ending that sets up some really cool stuff that does happen in season 3. I really like the first episode of this season, but it's the crawl to the end, the final episode, that is just so exhaustive and boring. Overall though, if you're a Sonic fan and you haven't seen this show, I still would recommend it. And overall, as a series, I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. It'd honestly be an 8 or maybe even like a 9 for me. This last season just wasn't, you know, as mediocre as it was. That's my review. Sonic Prime Season 3 of Sonic Prime. It's officially over, kinda. We'll see. But this is where I pass it off to you and ask what you think. What did you think about the 3rd season of Sonic Prime? What would you rate it out of 10? I'm really interested in knowing your little review and rating that you're going to give in the comment section down below. I'd love to know what you guys have to say. Feel free to follow my social media links to my Twitter and Instagram in the description below. You can follow those by Instagram on my life feature update and don't think Sonic the Hedgehog. But most importantly, if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. This is the #1 destination in YouTube for all things Sonic. Whether it's video games, TV shows, movies, comics, merchandise, and more, we talk about it all. Now that Sonic Prime is done and out of the way, we have the Knuckles show to look forward to, which should be on the way very, very soon. This is still a jam-packed year for Sonic the Hedgehog. So many surprises, so many new things are coming out. You're not going to want to miss a thing. I love all you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Wah! Wonder what you want right now, wonder what you want right now. Used to be body by, used to be body about it. Counting all my blessings and count my dollars, make it all better.